rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times.
Star Wars #1!
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Yes, it is time for Rebel Force Radio, your source for the Force. Welcome back to the program, everybody. Great to be hanging out with you here for the next couple hours. We got, it's going to be a really fun one. This is going to be a fun one. We're going to be kicking back and kind of relaxing and catching up on some more of that Empire Strikes Back press conference that we started last week. Got great feedback about that. That's fun. It's like getting in a time machine. Before we get to that, though, speaking of fun, we're going to be catching up with where Star Wars and Saturday Night Live, two cultural juggernauts, have crossed over the years. There's been a lot of Star Wars moments on SNL, and of course, SNL is celebrating its big 50th anniversary. Not to be outdone here in a couple of years, I think Star Wars will be celebrating its own 50th anniversary. So certainly a natural tie-in as these two forces of pop culture have, kind of came up and around the same time. So we're going to be taking a look back at some of the best of Star Wars on SNL. Plus, don't worry, we've got it. We've got the story. We got your emails. We got Mark Hamill. We're going to get to it. That's coming up later in the program. And if you don't know what story I'm referring to, just wait. So anyway, it's going to be a great time. As always, hanging out with all of you every week. We love it here on Rebel Force Radio. And by we, I mean myself. My name is Jason. And with me, as always, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Yeah, there's kind of a little bit of a downtime here between Skeleton Crew and Andor. But there's all kind of great things happening in the world of Star Wars and in the world of pop culture, with Saturday Night Live celebrating its 50th anniversary this week. They've had all kind of specials, live concerts, retrospectives, documentaries. And they did a big 50th anniversary show on Sunday night that got some pretty decent ratings. And as I was watching that, I thought to myself, oh, you know what? They featured just about everything that's made Saturday Night Live great over the years, but they didn't pay any attention to all the killer Star Wars parodies and jokes and funny moments that have happened over the years. Star Wars celebrities hosting SNL. So I kind of dove into the archives and pulled out some of what I thought is some of the best moments of Star Wars in SNL's history. And it's not comprehensive, but it's just some of the funniest ones, I think. We got some Daisy Ridley and Mark Hamill interview highlights coming up. And as Jason said, Mark Hamill, he's going to take the spotlight in the outrageous, unthinkable story of this week, because what Mark had happen to him was both outrageous and unthinkable. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, I just want to put everyone's mind at ease. We've got it. Don't worry. But before we get to that, let's check in with the voicemail. How about that?
Yes, let's do it.
Let's see what's on your mind.
You must contact me.
Play back the entire message.
What message?
Message after the message.
The Emperor commands you to make contact with him. It's a trick. Send no reply.
Hey guys, long-term listener and Patreon supporter Dave from Tampa here. Hey, on a recent episode you were talking about Sigourney Weaver and the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, speculating about what the time jump may be and also what potentially Baby Yoda's enhanced skills could be. So it made me think of a question for you guys. Do you think Baby Yoda is going to have a speaking role in this movie? I mean, Yoda spoke basics, so why not Baby Yoda? And if so, do you think that would be good, or would it be too jarring, considering Baby Yoda didn't really speak in the series aside from a few baby noises here and there? And if you do, who would you like to do the voice of Baby Yoda? Anyway, thanks for all the content and keep doing what you're doing. RFR number 1. Cheers.
Oh, man. Why do I get the sense that this is like when Maggie Simpson was going to have her first words on The Simpsons? Didn't it end up being Elizabeth Taylor that did the voice of Maggie? Wow, this puts a lot of pressure on us.
So, who's the Elizabeth Taylor of today who could be the voice of Grogu?
Man,
That's what he's asking. Do you think Grogu will start speaking in this film?
Oh, man. I would not be a bit surprised if they give us a big Grogu moment where he says his first words. Why not do it on the big screen? But who's the voice? You know what I like? Okay, I think they would just need to do what they did in the classic Charlie Brown specials. They got to go with a kid. I think they've got to somehow. I don't want it to be some stunt casting or a celeb. I really think they got to just cast a kid in there that's got a cute little voice and have him, give a line or two. That's what I'd like to see. Keep it authentic.
Well, I wonder who the cute kid of the moment is. Back in the day, you would always know. You'd be like, oh, yeah, Nicholas from 8 is Enough, or Joey Lawrence. Whoa.
Oh, no.
Remember those guys?
Imagine? Yeah, right.
There was always a cute kid. Even Jaleel White, Urkel, our own Jaleel White, was a cute kid of the moment. Gary Coleman, what you talking about? Who's the cute kid of the moment who could live up to those standards? I don't know.
Is that even a thing anymore?
Cute kids?
Yeah, there's a lot of cute kids out there, but on television and internet.
No, I know what you meant. Yeah, there's a lot of cute kids out there.
I just, where it was such a thing where if a show started losing its luster, especially shows that centered around kids, the old thing was, let's get a new kid, let's get another cute kid in there, but. But I don't know who the flavor of the month is when it comes to kid actors, especially at that age. I don't know. I'm so used to Grogu not talking that the idea of him talking, it just seems really strange to me. I
know.
I honestly, until this voicemail came across our desk, I hadn't given it a single thought. Now it's all I can think about.
Well,
should he talk?
Thanks to David for throwing it out there. He's a valued Patreon supporter, David. And it really gets you thinking. I mean, they could bring in a kid voice.
Yeah.
And that would be great. But what if they go for some celebrity? Because you know how Jon Favreau likes to do that.
Oh, man.
Bring in a Danny DeVito or a Cheech Marin or something.
No, it's definitely going to be, with Favreau, it's going to be like some comedian. It's probably going to be Timothy Chalamet or somebody like that.
Well, okay,
somebody who's really, super
in his Bob
popular.
Dylan voice. In his Bob Dylan voice.
Yeah.
That's very specific.
Yes.
James Mangold can make the arrangements. He's Star Wars. So, Baby Yoda, will he speak? Well, of course, Jeremy Allen White is being brought in to be the voice of Rada the Hutt. But right. Rada's all grown up now.
Right.
So very different than from the Grogu situation, where it's a Baby Yoda situation. Will Baby Yoda speak? I don't know if he will, but I think it would be appropriate if he did say something. His first words should be, "This is the way." That would make Dad so proud.
Wow.
This is the way.
That's it. I was thinking something Force related, but no, he's more Mando than he is Jedi, of course.
Yeah.
This is the way.
Maybe they'll ask me to provide the voice.
Hearing you do it, I'm thinking, that's.
This is the way.
They could just take that right off the podcast.
Are you donating that right now?
Yeah. This is not an audition. This is the actual thing, okay?
All right.
This is the actual recording session. Somebody tell Matthew Wood this is happening.
All right, I'm gonna give you the cue. All right, Mr. McInerney.
Yes,
all right,
yes, yes.
Are you ready? Do you feel good? Do you need any water?
Come on, let's
anything?
roll, baby.
Okay?
Let's roll. Come on, let's go.
Okay,
I'm a busy
all right.
man. Come on.
Gang, Mr. Max in a hurry. Okay, all right. And action.
This is the way.
That's gold, baby. Gold. Print it, I'm out.
Yeah.
Send me my check.
There it is.
So there it is.
No charge.
So will Baby Yoda speak? Well, I think the odds are pretty good. I would like to see something happen in this film that elevates it beyond just another episode of The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
I want to see big things. And it's so hard to determine now when you hear TV shows have such massively overblown budgets of 300 million, 400 million. They say with Andor, the 2 seasons is like $650 million to produce those shows.
However, because they've been able to spread that out across 2 seasons, when you look at the cost per minute, cost per episode, Andor is the cheapest. Now, I know there's a big asterisk after that because, they've cut the biggest checks, but look, Gilroy has been able to do something that the others haven't, and that is give us 12 episodes a season, 2 seasons, and if the first season showed us anything, it's incredible consistency. I don't think that there's been, Mando season 1, Mando season 2 were great, but as far as keeping the consistency that Andor did from episode to episode, I think Andor has done it best. I think they win it for me in terms of just knowing what you're going to get every week and not being disappointed at all. There was no filler in Andor. Looking back.
I have to agree with you. And also I am not taking into account the, cost per minute. Because Andor, those were meatier episodes. Those weren't your typical Star Wars streaming series, half-hour little jaunts. These were meaty, almost hour-long episodes, typically.
Yeah.
So I guess, the price per minute, it all adds up. So I hope they really dump a lot of cash into the Mando and Grogu movie so we can see some things that will melt our faces.
Yeah, oddly enough, those budget numbers haven't shown up. You would think with, you got a lot of people interested in making hay over budgets and all of that. I've not heard, maybe it's out there and I just haven't heard about it, but I haven't heard anyone really talking about the budget of that film.
No, I don't think these are things that get revealed before the fact, before the release. I think it adds up over time. And then with the productions happening in London, I believe there are certain things that are more publicly available, readily available to the public.
Right.
As far as those numbers go. So, well, we'll have to wait and find out. But will Grogu speak? I don't know. But I think if he does, he will say,
this is the way.
All right.
All right. Just to spare you the email, just a quick search says that it is reportedly set at approximately 120 million. That's based on, I think, some conjecture. Certainly nothing official from Lucasfilm or Disney, but that's what some analysts are estimating, 120 million, which is relatively low when you look at the other Star Wars movies and the streaming series.
Yeah, George kept a tight leash on things, but the Disney era, there was no ceiling for that kind of thing. It was just spend. So we'll see. We'll see if they're gonna present us with more of a bargain basement sort of Star Wars story. All that matters is that they pull off a good story. Really, we're at that point now. We're at that point. But we still need some things to melt our faces. I mean, we're going to the movie theater to see a Star Wars movie, for crying out loud. You got to give the public what they want.
For sure. Well, David, thanks for the voicemail. And if you're on the Rebel Force Radio official Facebook group, and you should, you just got to answer a couple of quick questions and prove to the admins there that you're a listener, start a thread. Who should do the voice of Baby Grogu, Baby Yoda? Go ahead and start that, and people can jump in and share their thoughts.
But better yet, David said he was a Patreon supporter. We have a community tab there where there's a lot of general Star Wars discussion going on. And in my opinion, it's the greatest place on the internet to have random Star Wars discussions with strangers. So check it out and make those strangers your friends, like a lot of RFR Patreon supporters have.
I like what you said. Star Wars conversations with strangers.
Yeah. Star Wars conversations with strangers. Hey, that's how me and Jason started that way. You know? I mean,
we were once strangers.
You have to start somewhere.
All right.
Crying out loud.
Well, you know what? Normally, this is a segment that goes typically towards the end of the show, but with all of the excitement surrounding SNL and its incredible 50-year run and counting, let's put the milk in the front of the store tonight.
Rebel Force Radio.
You've already made that Star Wars reference.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars parody.
All right. Star Wars in pop culture, and man, very few things have defined pop culture like Saturday Night Live. We were talking a little bit off air. Saturday Night Live, for me, that era in the late 80s into the early 90s when guys like Dana Carvey and Phil Hartman and Nora Dunn and Mike Myers, Adam Sandler were coming on. That was what I consider, because everybody has like their era. That was what I really consider my era, because I wasn't there from the beginning. My understanding of Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi came from Nick at Night reruns. Those of you might remember Nick at Night, Nickelodeon for the grown-ups after 8 o'clock. And they would kind of compress them into like these 30-minute compilations of sketches. And that's how I discovered those guys. And had an appreciation, but I can understand, the way when I talk to people that grew up with another era of SNL, they look back and think that the era that I loved is dated and not as funny as I seem to think it is. So, but that's also what makes SNL, I think, so incredible, is that you can kind of pinpoint periods of your own life and adolescence and growing up with the show. But I think, Mac, you were there from the very beginning, weren't you?
Well, not quite the very beginning, but I did get caught up on some of those early seasons with the reruns. I probably slid into Saturday Night Live when I was old enough to stay up that late.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd probably be around 1977, 1978, around the time Star Wars emerged. I started to emerge as a Saturday Night Live fan. Instantly fell in love with Belushi, Aykroyd, Bill Murray. Caught Chevy Chase on some of the reruns.
Right, one season, right?
Yeah, and then stuck with the show through some rough seasons. Remember the Eddie Murphy run?
Oh yeah,
and taking us up through the greats, like Dana Carvey, Phil Hartman, etc., into the Will Ferrell era.
Right, Will Ferrell, Sherry O'Terry, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I still watch the show to this day, and with Keenan and Michael Che and Colin Jost and all of that stuff. And the show has changed a lot, but it's also remained very consistently inconsistent. And that's something we love about Saturday Night Live, because it's always like you're really rolling the dice with every sketch that appears on the show. It can be hit or miss, but the ones that hit pretty hard are classics and always will be. And one of those classics is what I believe to be one of the very first Star Wars references to ever happen on Saturday Night Live was in the Bill Murray era, there with the original cast, and he did a character, Nick the Lounge Singer. And in this particular one, he would tour. He would be in different venues
right
every time. That all looked the same, but just a little bit different, And in this particular case, he's at a ski lodge entertaining the people there. And really the only difference is, there's the people wearing parkas. And Paul Schaefer has
it was always
ski
like
goggles.
the same set, wasn't it? It was this.
It was,
yeah.
Paul Schaefer there. He's the guy playing the piano. Paul was the musical director of Saturday Night Live in the original incarnation. And Bill had this character, Nick the Lounge Singer, and he's entertaining these people at the ski lodge, and he wraps up his set with his famous Star Wars improv.
Okay, Polly, you ready to play a little bit of music?
No.
Now, wait, this is the Nick Winter Show, and I do the entertaining, thank you. Let's go out with something really hot for these folks, a big hit out of 77. Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars. Give me the Star Wars, don't let them end. Star Wars, if they should bar wars, please let these Star Wars stay. And hey, how about that nutty Star Wars bar? Can you forget all the creatures in there? And hey, Darth Vader in that black and evil mask, did he scare you as much as he scared me? Star Wars, those near and far wars, my seventh winner up here, Star
He punches the air at the end. My seventh winter up here.
Yeah.
Paul's got the ski goggles on, and he turns and looks at Paul and freaks out.
Not only
that's a classic.
Yeah, and I think, look, no one else need add lyrics to the Star Wars theme. Those are the lyrics as far as I'm concerned. If they exist, those are the Star Wars lyrics.
Well, it caught on because in a later episode where Bill was being the lounge singer, Nick, he provided lyrics for Close Encounters. How it has that famous music that they used to communicate with the aliens. Do, 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 do.
Oh, he put lyrics to that too?
Yeah, the lyrics were Close Encounters theme. So good, so good. But from what I understand, that lounge singer bit actually came from Bill's brother, John, who he's had some career in acting and comedy and stuff. He did a really funny movie in, I think it was like 1985, called Moving Violations, where he basically plays the character of Bill Murray, but it's his younger brother, John, basically doing the Bill Murray shtick throughout the whole thing. Very effectively, too, I might add. And, I think Tim Kazurinsky, who was in SNL, was in that movie. And
John Murray will show up as in cameos in a lot of Bill Murray movies as well.
Yeah. So I guess it was his idea to kind of put the lyrics to the Star Wars theme. And he was just sort of, BSing around and came up with that. And then Bill took it to SNL and they made it into that. And it was amazing. Mark Hamill appeared. Carrie Fisher, she did host in the 70s, and she sang a song. It was like a beach blanket bonanza kind of, those movies they had.
Yeah, like the
60s.
Beach movies, like Gidget and
and that Funicello and
that.
Welcome to Party Beach. Say, what's your name?
Oh, I'm Princess Leia.
Wow, a real princess from outer space.
Princess
That was pretty fun. And Mark Hamill appeared. Then in the 90s, Mark Hamill appeared. And this is like the first time I saw Mark Hamill in a long time when he appeared on SNL.
This is the black leather jacket era, if I remember right.
Okay. Well, in this, he's actually wearing the shorty robe. And which is, that talk about making a grand re-entry into pop culture. He shows up wearing his New Hope wardrobe as he appears on the Star Wars Home Shopping Network and becomes an item that is available for purchase, actually. So this is the Will Ferrell era I think Chris Kattan is in this. I don't know who else. Maybe a Jim Brewer shows up. I don't recall.
This is pretty much the ultimate Star Wars collectible.
By far.
Jeff, why don't you bring out the item, if you could?
What do we got here? Well, I'm going to
Now,
show
Jeff,
you.
Yeah, what do we got here?
I'm going to show you. This is the actual Mark Hamill.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but apparently we kidnapped him and forced him at gunpoint, which allows us to sell him.
Right.
Yeah, well,
Gotta do what you gotta do.
how's it going, everybody?
Now, how much is this item going for?
Beautiful item. I'm gonna tell you, this item, are you ready, is going for $80,000.
Hell of a deal!
Now, ordinarily, you're gonna pay $100,000 for Mark Hamill.
Please. Now, this is a great item. I mean, if you're at home, you can make your own Star Wars sequels with a camcorder.
Sure. You can make him interact with your own Star Wars action figures also.
Yeah, or you could just have them stand on the lawn and wave to neighbors.
Hey, now wait a minute, you guys. That wasn't part of the agreement. I specifically said no waving.
And this is not a counterfeit Hamill.
Real McCoy.
I know last year we sold a Hamill that turned out to be a Bruce Boxleitner.
We assure you this is the Mark Hamill. Absolutely. I mean, just listen to him say, "May the Force be with you." Go on, Mark.
Now, wait a minute. I didn't even say that in the movie.
Just say it, Mark.
Let's do it.
Say it.
Yeah.
May the Force be with you.
Wow! Fantastic.
That's one of my all-time favorites because I remember falling asleep in my college years to Don West, who was that was the guy that they were parodying on the old Shop at Home, and he would sell everything from baseball cards to Bowie knives. I mean, he sold everything. It really focused on the collector market, and the guy would just go into conniptions about what a deal it was and how it was unprecedented. He was the ultimate sales guy. It's hardly an exaggeration in this.
Oh, back then
sketch.
you'd see guys with the baseball cards.
Yeah.
So they just shifted over to Star Wars, and really, the line between fiction and reality is very thin here because our own pal Steve Sansweet used to go on the QVC all the time selling Star Wars stuff. He was their guy. I even have some videotape of Steve doing that too, somewhere in the old archives here. But we'll get to that some other day. But this is Hamill appearing on the Star Wars Shopping Network. And he goes for sale right after the Jawa ashtray is being sold. So it's really funny. I think it's Harrison Ford ends up calling up saying, how much for the Hamill? I think Harrison makes the purchase.
Yeah.
So the Star Wars parodies really started to kick in the later half of the 90s, and it started becoming much more frequent on Saturday Night Live and everywhere. You know, you had the Star Wars films returning with the prequels, and in that case, you have Jimmy Fallon on Weekend Update doing a musical tribute to Star Wars as he's anticipating the new films coming out. He's all excited about it. And he performed this song about Yoda. So check this out.
He says the Force is with you, then he leans on a small cane to make you lift things up without him, will make you use your brain, and then you'll go insane. Give Jedi advice, live in the Vida Yoda. He won't tell you twice, live in the Vida Yoda. A swamp is where he lives, he looks like a pagoda, and tells it like it is, live in the Vida Yoda. Live in the Vida Yoda. Live in the Vida Yoda. Thank you.
Colin Quinn.
I love Colin. He gets extra points for the Abe Vigoda name drop there.
But I mean, what could be a more of a time capsule of the late 90s?
Yeah.
Than, referencing the Star Wars prequels and the song Living La Vida Loca.
Yeah.
So I wanted to say Yoda. I'm down with just calling it Living La Vida Yoda from now on.
Fallon, of course, going on to the Tonight Show and playing a lot of different characters on SNL. I forgot that he was doing the Adam Sandler thing. And I say the Adam Sandler thing. He's coming out with the acoustic guitar and doing his song parodies. That era of Fallon, I just completely forgot about.
I think Jimmy Fallon, when he went in for his audition for Saturday Night Live, he did his impersonation of Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
So he really picked up that baton and ran with it.
Next is, I think if I had to pick a favorite Star Wars moment, this is definitely in the top, for SNL, this is definitely in the top 5 for sure.
Well, Natalie Portman hosted an episode of Saturday Night Live where she took some questions, a little Q&A session with Nat from members of the audience. Of course, the audience populated by Star Wars super fans like this nut you're going to see in this next clip.
I think people probably know me best for my role in the 3 Star Wars movies.
Funny you mentioned Star Wars. I have an episode 2 specific question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Are we honestly supposed to believe that Jango Fett willingly worked hand in hand with Sifo Dyas in the Galactic Senate to build a clone army on the planet of Camino?
I'm sorry. I get this all the time. Certain kinds of people think that just because I was in Star Wars, I know everything about it.
So you don't know the answer?
I begin by saying that Sifo Dyas never worked directly with Jango Fett, and it was Darth Tyrannus who selected the Mandalorian bounty hunter after Sifo Dyas' murder.
Right, I forgot about that.
I guess you also forgot that Count Dooku, who later became Darth Tyrannus, murdered Sifo Dyas at the orders of Darth Sidious and then later presented his lightsaber to General Grievous.
Never mind.
Andy Samberg, he's awesome.
He's great.
He is so funny.
Because Star Wars, obviously being as incredibly popular as it is, they wouldn't have been able to nail that bit so well if they wouldn't have had a writer on staff that really knew their Star Wars canon and lore. Nat wasn't writing that sketch, I can tell you that. She wasn't the one fact-checking the Sifo Dyas, she called
Sifo. That's good stuff. So now we jump into the 2000s and the rise of the sequel trilogy. And there was a parody. They have done a parody earlier during, right around the time of the special edition.
Yes.
That featured Star Wars screen tests. We've seen those videos on YouTube and everywhere of the leaked Star Wars screen tests with people like, I don't recall all the names that were in there. I think a William Catt was in there, maybe a Kurt Russell. Auditioning, right? And Harrison Ford is there reading the lines. This is even before Harrison Ford had the role of Han Solo.
Yeah,
but I think it was kind of presumed by Harrison that they keep calling me back to read these lines. I think he was doing more than just a favor. It was an audition for him as well.
Yeah, I think around the time of the special editions was when we first saw those screen tests released on shows like Entertainment Tonight and things like that.
They were hitting the convention circuits as bootleg VHS tapes. They'd be alongside the Star Wars Holiday Special, and then you would see the audition tapes. Or
the screen tests.
Screen tests, as they call them.
Oh, Cindy Williams as Princess
Cindy
Leia.
Williams
that was one,
from Laverne and Shirley. She's definitely in it. And so they did that parody with Kevin Spacey. But apparently Saturday Night Live has scrubbed any connection to Kevin Spacey off the internet. So I can't present you with those videos. But instead, they followed up for the sequel trilogy. They knew they struck gold all those years ago with the special edition era screen test. So they brought it back for The Force Awakens, and they even had Daisy Ridley there to participate in some of these line reads with people like Sofia Vergara, etc. So let's check that out.
Hello, I'm J.J. Abrams. When it was announced in 2013 that I would be directing a new Star Wars film, I immediately went to work looking to cast the next generation of heroes. And now, a month out from the film's release, I thought it might be fun to show you some of the never-before-seen screen tests. Please enjoy.
Chemistry test with Sofia Vergara and Daisy Ridley.
Hurry, the ship's leaving.
Yes! We need to go to space! Is this for the little minions?
What?
I love minions! The little yellow guy. They are so funny you can't understand nothing they say.
Chemistry test for John Mayer and Daisy Ridley.
You saved my life. How can I ever repay?
We gotta use the force. All right, so I feel like the force is controlled through the eyes.
Wrong. Completely wrong.
Is that George Lucas?
Not controlled through the eyes. I'm not George Lucas.
You are George Lucas, you know.
Not the George Lucas you're looking for. You will get me a Coke Zero.
We don't have any Coke Zero.
You will get me a Coke Zero.
George, we only have Diet Coke.
Find your lack of Coke Zero disturbing. Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Oh, Bobby Moynihan.
He makes a great George Lucas. Look at him really standing there. I mean, he's just capturing the entire essence of George Lucas with the plaid shirt, the beard, the hair. I mean, just the jeans, the white.
Right.
The
and
white
Bobby
sneakers.
is a big Star Wars fan. Bobby Moynihan, we know he's a big Star Wars fan. His voiced characters in the Star Wars universe. So I just have this idea that Bobby Moynihan was the one to say it's got to be about a Coke, a Diet Coke or a Coke Zero or something, because George is pretty well known for his, well, let's call it's an addiction. If George has any addiction, it's the
Diet Coke.
Diet Coke.
So that's a deep cut right there. There's a lot of authenticity that kind of joke. Well, I think we might see Bobby Moynihan in this next one, which is pretty good. Again, the Force Awakens era, sequel era, this parody commercial they did right as the merch for The Force Awakens was being released. Midnight Madness, ring any bells? And so SNL jumped all over that and had this little TV commercial promoting the Star Wars toys and sort of, well, I shouldn't say sort of, I should say definitely bashing the adult Star Wars toy collector. Ring any bells, Swank? Yes,
Yeah,
guilty as charged. So let's take a little ribbing here, and I'm sure our audience is massively populated by Star Wars memorabilia collectors as well. So let's take this ribbing together. Why don't
All
we?
right, we can take it. Here we go.
They're speaking to us with this.
New Star Wars The Force Awakens toys and action figures are here.
Cool!
Are you ready to bring the adventure of the Star Wars universe into your home?
The Force is with us.
And us.
Yeah, us too.
Action figures and playsets for ages 6 and up.
Way up.
Battle the evil Kylo Ren.
I'm gonna get you in my lightsaber.
Or leave it in the box.
Stormtroopers attack!
Or leave them in the box and never touch them.
All your favorite Star Wars heroes and villains.
I have Rey and Finn.
I have 3 of each. 1 to display, 1 to open, and 1 just in case.
Non-stop Star Wars action, like Chewbacca with clip-on forest armor.
Time to suit up.
Or just look at him. Radical.
Oh, man. Well, I will tell you that nothing drives this home. Being a collector, I know Matt can relate to this, than when you have kids of your own, because you find yourself, you got to make that split-second decision as soon as they discover your toys, because they are toys. Are you gonna be that? Are you gonna be that dad? Where you go? No, you can't touch my toys.
No,
or are you just going to let
that.
it happen? And
You can't open that. You put it in this cabinet behind glass doors. Kids are looking at you like you're nuts. And we're sitting here like scratching our heads going, why don't toys resonate with kids anymore? Well, you know why? It's because of us. These parents who put the stuff behind glass doors. And
I think you cracked the code. We've now had an entire generation of kids that have been told that action figures are for being put on display. I think you just solved it. I think you just solved.
We got to get the Star Wars
long.
action figures back in the sandboxes, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
We have to get them out there in the fields and the playrooms and playgrounds of America and the world.
I think we all remember, those who've been listening for a long time, know what happened when young Dylan Mack decided to. Was it Dylan that was playing?
It was
with
Dylan.
It was Dylan decided to.
He was 3.
Play in Dad's toy room. And it got the Jawa sandcrawler, and I think he populated it with Ewoks. And you were quick to correct him, were you not?
Well, yeah. I said we live in a canon household. You can't have Ewoks driving the sandcrawler. And he looked at me like I was nuts. And so I handed over more Ewoks and watched him play.
Wow. I think we need to get the top toy psychologists and gurus to look at this phenomenon, because I think you might have just discovered plutonium by accident. This is why action figures are no longer resonating with kids, because dad's all over it.
Awesome! All right. We got one more for our SNL Star Wars retrospective.
Couldn't leave this one out.
And yeah, we're wrapping up with a big one. Adam Driver has hosted SNL a couple of times, but the first time he did it was not long after the release of The Force Awakens. And Kylo Ren was fresh on everyone's minds. So Adam was brought on to host, and they did a bit of the TV show. I don't think it's still on the air anymore. Undercover Boss, where the boss it's a reality show, and the boss of the company puts on disguise and re-enters the employee ranks as one of the lower guys on the totem pole.
Yeah, it kind of figures out, or tries to find out what they really think of him, what they really think of the company, and
millionaire CEO working in the warehouse, that kind of thing. And so they did a bit with Kylo Ren, and Adam Driver was all on board for it. Starkiller Base edition of Undercover Boss. So let's take a look at a minute of that.
Kylo Ren is the commander of the First Order, a massive regime dedicated to wiping out the galactic resistance. This week, Kylo is going undercover among Starkiller Base personnel as Matt, a radar technician.
You get so caught up in restoring the galaxy to its rightful state that you miss what's going on behind the scenes. I'm looking forward to having some real talk with some real folks.
We've put hidden cameras in an employee common area, and no one has any idea that Matt is their boss, Kylo Ren.
A buddy of mine saw Kylo Ren take his shirt off in the shower, and he said that Kylo Ren had an 8-pack. That Kylo Ren was shredded.
What? Your friend's a liar, man. Kylo Ren is a punk bitch. That guy looks like he weighs 30 pounds soaking wet underneath that little black dress.
Tim? Oh no, he's choking on food. I see what's in your mind.
And it is stupid! Dude, Matt straight up sucks.
Now that's a good one for Bobby Moynihan right there. And Adam Driver. Adam Driver playing the tweaked out, really disturbed Kylo Ren. Gosh, I wish they delved more into that in the sequel trilogy. Just like showing us a really disturbed, twitchy Kylo Ren. I love that. I love that. And I think it's spot on, too, for how Kylo was presented in The Force Awakens. But
yeah, that one, you talk about viral. I remember when that aired, and it was everywhere. And I think
Star Wars fans are
swung back around and maybe did it again in a later episode where they checked back in with. I believe he played Matt one more time. I believe on SNL.
I think you might be right. Well, I mean, it had such an impact. Star Wars fans are cosplaying as Matt, the what is he? Radar technician.
Yeah.
at conventions and stuff. So Star Wars fans are nuts, and we love it. So, and there's been so many other great moments. You know, Donald Glover hosted, and he did some Lando bits. Kyle Mooney is Baby Yoda. You know,
Woo-wee! I'm cute! Ooh!
Wait, you can talk? You don't sound like Yoda.
Oh, sounds like this I should. Hey, come on, man, that's played out. Baby Yoda's what's popping right now. Hell yeah!
just really funny stuff. But those are the ones we want to feature for this week, and we hope you enjoyed taking a look back at the best of Star Wars on the 50th anniversary of Saturday Night Live. 50 years of Saturday Night Live, 50 years of SNL Star Wars sketches. So good stuff. Good stuff.
Love it. Hey, before we go any further into the program, we do want to remind you about all the fantastic things happening on Patreon. That's right. If you need more Rebel Force Radio in your life than just the weekly podcast or the after shows, the place to get it is Rebel Force Radio on Patreon.
Oh my God, Patreon is the place to get more RFR and support Rebel Force Radio. This week's been a busy week at RFR on Patreon. We've had a lot of things going on over there. Joe Dallas returns to the RFR Q&A and takes us through his top 10 list of Star Wars creatures and monsters. And it's a really funny look at it because Joe, Joe's one of those RFR VIP Hall of Famers. And he walks us through his top 10 list, and he accompanies everything with the sound effect that the creature or monster makes and collectible. And so we have a lot of fun, and then I look back at the Sounds of Star Wars book, and we discuss how the various creature sounds were created by Ben Burt and the Wizards at Skywalker Sound. So that's a lot of fun. That's RFR Q&A for this week.
2 there are.
Oh, wait, what's that? We had 2 Q&As this week. Holy smokes.
No.
There were 2 of them. And this one I did with Dr. Dominique, and he walked me through all of Luke Skywalker's injuries and illnesses that we see. Luke takes a beating from the moment he's a kid, as seen in the Kenobi series, all the way up till his eventual passing through the Force in The Last Jedi. Well, Dr. Dom takes us through the whole thing, and we have a lot of fun and a lot of laughs, charting all of Luke Skywalker's injuries and potential illnesses. Both physical and mental, even. I mean, it's a real breakdown. It's a real breakdown. And I love outside-the-box Star Wars conversation like that. And I love having those types of conversations with hardcore Star Wars fans. Like you guys listening to the show, you have to be a hardcore Star Wars fan to be into Rebel Force Radio and listening to this podcast. And if you want more, you can find it at RFR on Patreon. Full show video, ad-free shows, early bird releases, access to a great community of Star Wars fans, the best community of Star Wars fans you'll find anywhere. Plus, we always cross-post all of our YouTube posts and everything, so you're totally in the loop with all things Rebel Force Radio if you are a supporter of RFR at patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. That's patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. Join our community, support your favorite Star Wars podcast, and have a great time doing it. Patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio.
I got a fever, and the only prescription is more
Rebel Force Radio.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news. Come closer, I have good news.
All right, we got news. Oh, leading off on headlines this week, Stephen Knight, the one-time writer of the Rey film. Jim, it looks like he has broken any silence that he might have had about his experience working on the movie and writing this, being one of several writers now that have taken a stab at it. So what do we got from Steven?
Well, he was interviewed by The Telegraph, and they asked him about leaving Star Wars, and he explained with this quote. He says, "There's a system, and when you engage with it, you know what it is. You do your bit, you turn in your draft or drafts, as I did, and then the system moves on. I fully expect that substantial amounts of what I did will be in the movie. Who knows? But that's the expectation." So apparently I think Steven had to leave this project. It was taking way too long. And he had these Peaky Blinders commitments that weren't going to wait for a Star Wars film.
So you don't think he was dismissed? You think that his schedule was such that he had to back out of the project and go because it was taking more time than he expected?
Well, when he says something like, "I fully expect that substantial amounts of what I did will be in the movie," then I think that, he had to walk away from it. And they are going to honor a lot of the work he had done. But they're still putting the screenplay in the hands of a new writer, George Nolfi.
Right.
So, it's not really that different than what went on with Rogue One, except Rogue One didn't have the luxury of unlimited time like this Rey film seems to have.
No, I mean, they had a deadline to meet, and they had a window, theatrical release that, Bob Iger was making all of those claims and staking out all of those release dates before, as we chronicled here, before sometimes there was a writer or anything. Bob Iger was out there making these release date proclamations.
It's tough as a creative, I think, to have that gun pointed at your head, but also it can apply the right amount of pressure to get the job done and present something good. It's hit or miss. It's all hit or miss. But while we're on the topic of Daisy Ridley and her future in Star Wars, we know she is going to be in the film eventually, should it ever be produced. That Stephen Knight was working on. That George Nolfi is currently working on. That Charmin Obaid-Chinoy is going to direct. But there's also been this buzz about Sean Levy and his Star Wars film, which we know is in the works because we've heard it from the director himself. And it appears that Sean is going to go after his Star Wars film later this year as far as putting it in front of cameras. And of course, it's been rumored that there's some real star power that could be potentially attached to his film in the form of Ryan Gosling.
Right.
But we've also heard that Rey is going to be in the film. Could it be an older Rey, or could it be the Daisy Ridley era Rey?
The race for Rey, they're calling.
Right. Now, it's interesting, though, because we've never actually heard from Daisy Ridley about appearing in a Sean Levy film. And so she's out promoting this film called Cleaner, which is Daisy Ridley. She's a window washer on some high rise in some metropolitan area. And then she basically finds herself in Die Hard.
If I had a nickel, Jim, for every time I saw in downtown Cleveland a window washer that looked like Daisy Ridley, I'd have a nickel. I don't even think I would have a nickel. I love when these beautiful Hollywood folks get cast in these roles. Can you imagine looking out your window there? You're in downtown Chicago, and here comes the window washer up on the little the pulley system, and it's a Daisy Ridley.
No, I don't know. Please. I'm gonna take a closer look next time I see those guys riding up on any building I'm working in. But so she's out and about promoting this film Cleaner, and she spoke to the Movie Web people, and they asked her flat out about director Sean Levy's upcoming Star Wars film and her involvement in it. And here's what Daisy had to say.
I do not know. I mean, I know as much as anyone does about the Sean. I always thought his name was Sean Levy. Sean Levy.
I could be wrong.
Who knows? Yeah, so that's all I know about theirs. But I know with ours that we are very excitedly waiting for a script. And George Nolfi is a brilliant writer. So, yeah, it's exciting.
All right. Tight-lipped on Sean Levy. But
it doesn't sound like she's attached to it.
No.
Because, I mean, if the rumors are correct, and the rumors say that the Sean Levy film could go in front of cameras later this year, and we've heard Ryan Gosling being rumored as maybe being on board with this production, wouldn't Daisy Ridley know about it at this point?
Well, she would at least know how to pronounce the guy's name.
All she's talking about is the Charmin Obaid-Chinoy project that now has George Nolfi working on it.
And if she was working on a Sean Levy movie, she would know that it's pronounced Levy, not Levy. I think that's the tell.
Right. She may have had a meeting with the director or something at this point, if those rumors are indeed true, and Sean Levy is going to start shooting his film later this year.
Context clues.
Well, I think that's kind of important.
Yeah, it is.
That's kind of important, just as far as knowing whether or not Daisy Ridley will be appearing as Rey in the Sean Levy film.
Right.
I would say, as of now, the odds are slim to none. But things work quickly, and
or it
Daisy,
could be a
she
whole new, another, as you said earlier, another era of Rey's life that could be in the Sean Levy film.
Those Helen Mirren.
The Helen
rumors.
Mirren years.
Yeah. Helen Mirren. So that's Daisy.
Yeah.
And so she's the future of Star Wars. The past of Star Wars is firmly the Mark Hamill era.
Yeah, but not that story. Not that story.
No, we're not getting to that one yet. Mark was, he's busy. He's out promoting this robot movie he's in where he's voicing some character in this animated film. And so he's been out and about lately. And he appeared on the Smartless show, Smartless, hosted by Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, and Sean Hayes.
Oh, Sean Hayes is a big Star Wars fan.
Yeah, they make that clear. But Sean doesn't ask the deep probing questions. I wish he would. You know, he said he had a bunch of questions about Hamill's return to Star Wars in the sequel films, and I really wish they leaned on that out of the gate. But instead, it really turned into a whole, tell us the whole history of your involvement with Star Wars kind of conversation and talking, from like beginning to middle. And they never got toward the latter years. And I would rather hear more about that, because Mark has told a lot of these stories before, and he's told them the exact same way time and time again. So sometimes it's hard to really find anything that's really super fresh. But I do enjoy hearing Mark at this point in his life as he looks back on his legacy as Luke Skywalker. I find it incredibly interesting, even if he is repeating stories I've heard before, which I'm trying to avoid with these clips I pulled, but it's some of this might, sound familiar to you. Like, didn't I hear him say this before? I do like the interactions he's having with the hosts, though, Jason, Will, and Sean. And that, to me, brings out a little bit more of a comfortable Mark Hamill. And he talks about auditioning for Star Wars in this clip.
It was like a 10-page scene with Harrison as Han Solo in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon. No Wookiee, just the two of us. But there was no context. I mean, I'm reading this thing going, wait a second. Is this like a parody or a send-up of right. Flash Gordon? Is it like Mel Brooks or whatever? So I when I went to the audition, I went to Harrison because he had done American Graffiti. He'd known George. And I said, Harrison, is this like a send-up? I mean, is it? He said, hey, kid, let's just get it done. He was absolutely no help whatsoever.
I could listen to you imitate him all day.
Did he have to audition at all, or was he was already set in that part coming off of American Graffiti?
Well, no, he'd already done American Graffiti. When I did the screen test, I don't know whether he was set or not, but he did do a screen test with Carrie, so I guess George was fairly sure. And there were 2 sets of 3. And Marcia Lucas, George's wife, said when he was packing to go to London, he hadn't decided between the 2. I mean, there was no mix and match. It was me, Harrison, and Carrie, or Will Seltzer, Terry Nunn, and I forget now who was Han Solo. And she took credit. She said, I'm the one that suggested he go with you guys.
That's great.
That's amazing.
But here's what's so interesting is, and I went to George at the same audition, said the same thing I said to Harrison. Is this like a parody or are we serious? He went, well, let's just do it and we'll talk about it later. Translation, let's just do it and we'll never talk about it later.
Sure. Yeah, right. Shut up and hit your mark.
Exactly. George is not he's not an actor's director. He comes alive in the editing room. He doesn't want to hear about backstory or motivation or whatever. Right. Now, Irvin Kershner was the opposite. He was very much into that. He did Empire.
Yeah, this is a classic Hamill. This is a classic Hamill story. Mark was game for this. I think that's the most important thing that I take away from Mark's entry into Star Wars was he was for Harrison it was a job. It was a gig. Harrison was still at least a part-time carpenter at the time, and but Mark was bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and really wanted to understand the whole context of what this meant, and was it a parody? Was it for real? It's interesting to me though that even George, if we can take Mark's story for verbatim, didn't really want to define it. He backed off. Maybe George was trying to give himself some room that if it fell flat, he could always say, "Well, it was a parody." I was just, it wasn't meant to be taken seriously. This was always going to be a parody of Buck Rogers or whatever. So maybe he was leaving himself room, but for Harrison, it was just a gig.
Well, I think Harrison understood what the end game was for the film and knew that it was going to, it had ambition. It was trying to create a story that you've never seen before with special effects that would blow you away. And Harrison, I think, was on board with that. But Mark, I think you're right. George was leaving some wiggle room there when Mark really started questioning, because exactly correct. It all comes together for George in the editing suite.
Yeah.
That's when the film really reveals itself. So maybe even George didn't really want to define it as it was going in front of camera.
Can you imagine if George would have realized in the editing suite that he just made a parody?
Oh my God, this is hilarious.
He made Monty Python for sci-fi.
I never realized how funny it is to see C-3PO fall off a cliff. Let's do it over and over again, because they might have had all these different angles when the Sand People attack happened, and 3PO fell over. Maybe they had like some really funny falls.
He really leans into the whole comedy aspect of it.
Yeah, he starts adding wacky sound effects like bonks and whistles and tire screeches and all the things from the Looney Tunes library. Oh my God, this is shaping up beyond my dreams. I know audiences of today have been waiting for this. So maybe he was leaving a little wiggle room. I find it interesting. The one thing I do find interesting in that Hamill clip is that Marcia Lucas had told Mark that George had not yet made up his mind about who the core 3 actors were going to be, even when he got on the plane to fly out to London to start shooting the thing. Wow. He waited before he pulled the trigger on that final one. And Mark said it came down to, Mark, Harrison, and Carrie against Terry Nunn, who is the lead singer of the band Berlin.
Yeah.
And I believe I may have some audio of her talking to Wendy on one of Wendy's radio shows over the years about Star Wars.
No.
I should try digging that up. It just suddenly came back to me. And then he said, Will Setzer? I don't even know who that is. I tried to look up a Will Setzer, and I couldn't come up with anyone. And someone else could have been Kurt Russell. But we don't know. Or Christopher Walken. Christopher Walken, who had been rumored as someone in the running to play Han Solo. Chewie, let's make the jump to light speed. I got a fever, and the only prescription is more hyperspace.
Keeping it in the SNL. I like that.
I'm phoning in that Christopher Walken impersonation.
You can do better?
I don't want to hear about it. I'm sure I can, but I don't want to. My pants are too tight. That's a tease for a story that's coming up a little later. Momentarily. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. All right, so we have more of Mark Hamill with the wacky guys from Smartless.
Mm-hmm.
They're making millions. These guys, these Smartless guys. It drives me crazy.
Well, like they need it.
SiriusXM signed them for like $100 million for this podcast of theirs. It just drives me nuts. All right, here's Mark. Here's Mark talking about to the Smartless millionaires about the first time he realized Star Wars was a big deal.
They sent the three of us, Carrie, Harrison, and me, on to promote it, and we did Vancouver. I don't think it had opened, and then it opened. And when we came into Chicago, I looked outside the plane and I saw massive crowds, and I said, "Hey, you guys, there's somebody famous on this plane." And we were looking around to see if there was a big sports star or whatever. And then as we got closer, I said, "Hey, Carrie, look, that girl has buns on. She's got the Princess Leia. Harrison, that guy's got the vest and everything." Wow. Somebody had made a Luke tunic out of a pillow, because there were people dressed like us, and we all looked at each other like, "Whoa, that's above and beyond."
Boy, here
Welcome
you go.
to the future. Welcome to the future.
Welcome to the future. You get into Chicago, and I don't want to break it to Mark, but that's how everybody in Chicago dresses. They all have the buns, the vest, and the tunics made of pillowcases.
We make the shorty robes out of the pillowcases. I'm wearing one right now. That's how we roll.
But
I found it interesting that he talks about landing in Chicago, because we've played those interviews on the show, that reel-to-reel tape we found of the WGN radio interviews with Mark, Harrison, and Carrie. And then we found the Lee Phillips show, which was a real gas. Right. And all of that happened on this trip when they were out promoting the original release of Star Wars. They hit Vancouver first, but the film had not released yet, so they were still just nobodies. But by the time that plane landed in Chicago, forget about it. They were Han, Luke, and Leia, Star Warriors. Yeah. Good stuff. Okay, so to continue, unless you had something else you wanted to say about that, Jason?
I do not. I'm looking forward to clip 3 here.
Clip 3. Does Mark Hamill go back and revisit the Star Wars universe by rewatching the films? Does he make a habit of that? Does he find himself being drawn back? Even maybe flipping channels or something? Does he ever land on Star Wars and say, well, yeah, I'm going to take a look at this? Well, he answers.
I don't go back and see him again. In fact, when they did the reissue with the special editions, when they called me, I said, "Oh, yeah, if you can send me a copy, I'd like to see it." When my kids heard about it, they said, "Are you kidding? You're not going to go see it in the theater?" I said, "Why do you guys want to see it? You've seen it a bazillion times on video." They said, "But never on a big screen."
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did. I saw Empire and the first one, Empire and Jedi, once in the theater, but I haven't seen them again since. And the same with the sequels. You see them and then you just move on.
Wait, you've seen Star Wars, Empire, and Jedi only once in the movie theaters and never again? No.
Yeah, I don't watch them on video, to tell you the truth. And there's a certain disconnect, because the fans have seen them not only far more recently, but many, 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 many more times than I have. So they'll ask me questions where I go, wait a second, because this is, did we go to the planet? They go, well, it's not in a movie. It's in Splinter of the Mind's Eye. It's a novel by Harry Dean Fox. So they play the games, they read the books, and they know way more about it. I know I've disappointed people. I took a Star Wars quiz once and flunked it. Nathan said, it was multiple choice. What kind of memorial fails?
Yeah, I was going to ask you when the last time was that you saw the first one, Star Wars?
It would have been 97, because it was the 20th anniversary of when it first came out. But I mean, the questions like, what was Han Solo smuggling? A, jewelry. B, units. C, it was spices. And who knows that? I mean, the minutia that these people have is really astonishing.
Did we just hear Mark Hamill? Was this his get a life people moment? Was this
Well, no, because he never shamed anyone.
Right.
He never shamed anyone. But he did,
another SNL callback there.
How many Star Wars novels, like expanded universe, etc., have come out over the years? Would you say? Just a wild guess.
A wild guess, I'd say 300.
300? That might even be a little low, actually.
Wow.
Now that I think of it.
Wow. If you're going to throw in the comics as well as...
No, I'm not. I'm just thinking with
novels?
Those novels. Yeah.
I feel like...
Well, 300. Let's say 300. That's a pretty decent guess, okay? Apparently, Mark Hamill believes every single one of those novels is Splinter of the Mind's Eye, because that's the only one he ever references. In any of these interviews, I always pick up on these things Mark does. Going back to...
It's possible.
And now it's Splinter of the Mind's Eye. That's his big drop. That covers any Star Wars novel ever written outside the story being told in the movies. It's called Splinter of the Mind's Eye.
And I think it's because at one time he believed that was the next movie that he was going to make. That was the next Star Wars movie, was Splinter of the Mind's Eye. George Roger, there's a couple different ways this could go. It's popular.
Well, he was He was heavily involved in Star Wars at that time. That was the first, that book came out right after, a year after the original film. So it definitely has been on Mark's radar since 1978.
And it's the only title he remembers.
It's become, that covers the entire expanded universe, the spin-off universe, the extended universe, whatever you want to call it. All of those 300-plus novels that have been written over the decades, each and every one of them, in the mind of Mark Hamill, is titled Splinter of the Mind's Eye. And I love that. And also I loved when he tried to reference the author, Alan Dean Foster, and called him Harry Dean Foster. Clearly thinking of the old school actor Harry Dean Stanton.
Yes, I was...
Harry Dean Foster. Splinter of the Mind's Eye.
Man, he tries.
Splinter of the Mind's Eye is every Star Wars book, and all of them are written by Harry Dean Stanton.
All right, we got more Mark Hamill coming up later on in the program. So we're going to give Mark a little break. Not long, but a little break.
Just for a minute or two.
And talk about Warwick Davis. Warwick Davis, of course, iconic when it comes to Star Wars, starting off his career as a very young man as Wicket W. Warwick, came in clutch when Kenny Baker proved to be... well, how do we put this delicately? Indisposed when he was supposed to
Hey, Wicket. Hey, Warwick, can you play Wicket for me today? I'm a bit indisposed.
Sure, Kenny.
And of course, the rest was history. He ended up just absolutely capturing the heart of Carrie Fisher and other cast members, and did his own little behind the scenes kind of fan film that he did, Revenge of the Ewok, which, hey, was also available at those conventions, right between the audition tapes and the holiday special was the Revenge of the Ewok. special. But and then of course went on and played multiple roles in the prequels, and he showed up in the sequels, didn't he? Did Warwick?
He did. Wicket made an appearance at the end of The Rise of Skywalker.
Right, the celebration.
And
at the end.
Yeah, there was a celebration at the end, and he was with his son, who was also an Ewok.
His
And
real
it was
son,
interest-
Warwick's real
Yeah.
son. Oh, okay,
Right.
yeah.
And it was interesting to note that Wicket didn't age one bit from when he was an Ewok youth. All through, I mean, he didn't age. He was the same old Wicket.
Same old Wicket.
Minimal change. I thought Wicket was supposed to be a child in Return of the Jedi.
I believe.
And,
A teenager.
all right. Well, he's still, I don't know what he's doing, but he's still maintaining those youthful looks.
No gray
because
in the
Rise of
beard.
Skywalker is 30-something years into the future.
Yeah, I got to go look at that because, when we look at Return of the Jedi, there were some very distinguished Ewoks. They had a little gray in the beard. Anyone who's had a dog knows that they get that gray around the muzzle. That happens for Ewoks. So what you're recalling from at the end of Rise of Skywalker, no gray around the nose or the muzzle. Or
Not that I recall. I don't recall any changes to the
add a little bit of
Ewok,
that.
the Warwick Wicket look. It just, I don't know.
Took you
I
out
don't
of
know,
it.
But I mean, what an amazing twist of fate for him to be essentially a fill-in for Wicket because Kenny Baker couldn't do it. And I mean, that really opened up his whole career. And then he moved on to Willow.
Yeah.
And what a chance of a lifetime to land that role. I mean,
George wrote came up with the idea for Warwick because he just was so apparently charismatic, sweet, kind. He really did just like I said, capture the hearts of those that worked with him on Return of the Jedi. Not just Carrie, but also George Lucas. And it's really phenomenal. And I got to throw in a plug. If there's any Ricky Gervais fans out there, if you haven't seen Life's Too Short, I think they only did 2 seasons in a Christmas special. It is some of the funniest television you'll see. It is so worth it. Check it out. It's hard to get on like home video in the United States. Track it down. I'm sure you find your sources. It's really, really great. So Warwick Davis, Harry Potter also did. He's an alum of the Harry Potter films, but a consummate
Don't forget
pro.
Leprechaun.
And Leprechaun. He's got his own slasher franchise.
You're trying to steal my gold. I'm gonna kill you.
But how great was it to see him actually get a BAFTA honorary award, a Lifetime Achievement Award? Very, very deserving, this guy.
absolutely. Warwick Davis is, really one of the shining stars of Gen X, in my opinion. And him taking this gold home is a victory for all Generation X. God bless him. So the 2025 BAFTA. That's what they should call the Star Wars Awards.
The Star Wars Awards.
The BAFTAs.
Totally. The BAFTAs.
We were talking a lot about BAFTA on the RFR Q&A earlier this week
with the
Dr.
doctor.
Dominique, and as we broke down Luke Skywalker's injuries and illnesses. But check it out at RFR Patreon. But yeah, the BAFTAs. It happened in London at the Royal Festival Hall. And there was a lot of star power in the crowd to watch Warwick Davis, except he accepted the Fellowship Prize. Fellowship Prize. It's BAFTA's highest honor, Jason.
Wow.
The highest honor, going to the shortest guy in the room. God bless him. Warwick Davis, we love him. And the jokes don't stop there. Even Warwick, being self-deprecating as always, throws a little jab at his height in his speech that he gave upon receiving the Fellowship Prize. So let's tune in and hear a little bit of that acceptance speech.
Well, this is probably the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I've been in Star Wars. Sorry, Tom. Thank you so much. Now, I'm going to keep this short. It's been a long night. Short, yeah, you can laugh. It's good. I thought it had gone. Good. I won't do any more, though. That's the last one.
Yeah, and that's the last one for me, too. I'm not going to do it again.
And I believe Warwick, he lost his wife earlier this year, or in late 2024.
Yes.
And they had been together a long time and have several children together. And very, very sad. So really good that something nice like this happened to him.
Yeah, it's sad. I believe I met the whole family once.
We did. I was with you.
Convention. Yeah, right. Remember that?
Mhm.
Yeah. And so Warwick dedicated it, he dedicated the BAFTA to his wife, who always gave him a lot of strong support along the ways. And, strong support's important to have in a marriage and any relationship, but it's even more important to have with your wardrobe. You need to support your wardrobe with things like belts, suspenders, etc. And that leads us to our outrageous, unthinkable moment.
It's outrageous. It's unthinkable.
There it is. Okay. So we don't have to move too far away from the BAFTAs. The same night, the same place, Royal Albert Hall. I don't know if this was before or after Warwick was given his honorary award, but Mark Hamill, of course, another Star Wars alum, the Star Wars alum, took to the stage. And Jim, people were looking around thinking, is this for real? Is this a bit? Is it a gag? What is going on? But, this is the kind of thing that you have recurring nightmares about. You're on stage and your pants fall down.
That's right, Jason. The headlines read, Mark Hamill leaves guests horrified as his pants fall down while presenting BAFTA award.
Wow.
Mark's pants fell down on stage in front of an audience featuring the biggest muckety-mucks of London and Hollywood. People like Timothy Chalamet, Ariana Grande, Adrian Brody, and yes, of course, Warwick Davis. They were all looking on in shock and horror as Mark was giving away the BAFTA award for Best Film. It turned into a wardrobe mishap, a wardrobe malfunction that would even make Janet Jackson blush. So this is according to The Sun. They say Mark started speaking, then his suit trousers just dropped to his knees. It was like, can you imagine? Audience was horrified. How do you think poor Mark Hamill felt? My God. Most guests looked horrified but said nothing. They were turning to each other wide-eyed as if to say, did that just happen? Did we just see Luke Skywalker's pants fall to his knees?
Oh, God. Now, please tell me he was wearing those little garters that hold up the socks.
Oh, my God. Well, those tuxedos. He was wearing a tux.
Right.
A classic black tuxedo.
And
white
he got
shirts.
from American Commodore. He rented it for $99. Just
he went cheap. Mark went cheap. Oh my goodness. Well, those tuxedos. They
got it at the
define
mall.
logic. They have to be so properly fit. You can't put a belt on with a tuxedo.
No, it's got the little clips on the sides that you kind of cinch in.
So clearly, one of those clips came loose. We have video of Mark. What's amazing about this, and for our listening audience, just listen closely. You might hear a little shakiness in Mark's voice, but the dude's a professional. He didn't crack. He's out in London, in a whole nother country, in front of all these mucky-mucks in the crowd, and most of us kind of have the realization that Mark Hamill, he is a superstar and everything, but he does generally seem to be a guy who's a regular dude who has his feet on the ground.
And his pants around his ankles.
Well, that's just it, Feet on the ground, pants on it. It's what they always say about celebrities. They're just normal people like you and me. They put their pants on one leg at a time. And at the Bafta Awards, Mark Hamill proved just that, except in reverse. He did it in reverse, okay? So we have it on tape. Let's watch the video and listen closely. Mark, you might hear a little shakiness in his voice as the pants drop to the ground, but he doesn't break. He doesn't draw attention to it, which kind of surprises me. I think it could have been a famous moment if he started, just left him there and walked off the stage, with the pants down to his ankles, kind of like shuffling off the stage. That would have been a great moment.
The little waddle.
That would have been hilarious. Well, let's watch the video and share in Mark's embarrassment.
Here we go.
If you're in the room like me, you must love film. So what makes us love cinema so much that we're all gathered here to celebrate tonight? For me, it's that films create worlds so vivid and stories so powerful
There they go.
we lose ourselves in them completely. They create immersive cinematic landscapes that feel alive, whether they're set here in London or anywhere your imagination can take you.
Tucking in. They show the audience. People are looking at each other and kind of laughing. But Mark doesn't break.
No.
He just burns right through.
And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, in my case, unfortunately, the cameraman was, it was a podium up shot. Mark's standing at a podium. So we actually don't see the pants falling down. What we see is Mark hiking them back up. And the look, the voice does shake, but there's a recognition in the eyes that something has gone horribly wrong, I think, with Mark Hamill.
I think when he really starts talking, he starts to notice something's feeling a little loose around the equator. And this could be disastrous. It's almost like he's like squinching his knees together and his thighs, trying to keep the pants on. And then whoop, there they go. Yeah. And he just sticks with that teleprompter and hoists those puppies up to the waist and doesn't break for a second.
Isn't this though like something you would see? It's great that it happened at the BAFTAs, because to me this is very British humor. Like, I could see a Rowan Atkinson, a Mr. Bean standing up there, about to give out a major award, and the pants drop, and it's all part of a bit. If I was in the audience, especially knowing what a fan Mark is of classic comedy and classic entertainment, other than slipping on a banana peel, what is more stereotypical to happen than the pants dropping?
No, it's universally beloved as a crack up. It's like banana peel, pants dropping to your ankles, and farting. What could be more universally hilarious? But Mark didn't roll with it. He obviously was petrified.
Yeah, of course.
And he just it is unfortunate he couldn't roll with it. But I just hope he can connect with the Force, and the Force will speak to him, and the Force will say to him just one simple word: suspenders. Yeah, suspenders. Mark, God, if people aren't buying him suspenders for his birthday and Christmas this year, then something's really wrong. But poor Mark, it's how embarrassing for him.
It's terrible.
You could tell by the way, he expertly covered it up. And granted, he didn't have protection of the podium in front of him. You know, God bless that podium that was in front of him. But there were some real big shots in the crowd there sitting off to the side who had a clear view of the action going on there. And his pants just dropped right in the middle of his speech. Yeah. But, apparently at the post-awards dinner, the wardrobe malfunction was a major topic of conversation. People were all buzzing about that big moment. One insider shared, Mark and his disappearing trousers were the talk of the awards dinner later on. People couldn't work out how they just fell down when when they had been perfectly fine earlier when he walked out on the stage. Again, as I believe that he was kind of aware that there was something wrong going on there in the moment.
You think they used that they could have had that slide whistle sound effect?
He's got the big boxer shorts on.
Oh,
there,
yeah, right.
With the big giant hearts on them. Like the ones Benny Hill used to wear. I mean, we are in London, for crying out loud.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like it's such a tropey kind of thing. Wow.
It's a scenario where every big star's worst nightmare happens, but Mark played it out like a pro.
Yeah.
So he needs to get a belt or some suspenders. That's what I believe. But I did get inspired by this, and I prepared. I have a little presentation inspired by this moment.
Yeah,
if you will, if I can just have the floor for a second.
Sure, of course.
I want to celebrate Mark Hamill's wardrobe malfunction at the BAFTAs with the classic practice of taking Star Wars quotes and replacing one of the words in the quote with the word pants. So, here we go. This is performance art. I find your lack of pants disturbing. Away with your pants. I mean you no harm. You're all clear, kid. Now let's pants this thing and go home. I want to know what happened to the pants they sent you. Your pants will freeze before you reach the first marker. General Veers, prepare your pants for a surface attack. Hey, kid. You look strong enough to pull the pants off a gunboat. Governor Tarkin, I should have expected to find you holding Vader's pants. I'm altering the pants. Pray I don't alter them further. I've got a bad feeling about pants. Thank you very much.
That's fantastic. That is
my pants.
Wow. I love it. Well, that's a fitting tribute to Mark Hamill. Wow.
Yes. Mark,
that
may the pants be with you. Always.
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 Is Baby Yoda mean in real life? No, and his name is Grogu.
Rebel Force Radio.
We'll go back to maybe a simpler time for Mark Hamill, maybe a happier time when his pants stayed up, going all the way back to 1980. If you remember, if you're listening to us last week, we started with some highlights from this press conference that happened as they were promoting Empire Strikes Back, opening up in theaters. And Jim, this was everybody. This was Harrison. This was Carrie. This was Mark. You had Billy D. Williams, the new guy. You had Anthony Daniels. Dave Prowse was there. Irving Kershner, Gary Kurtz. They were all there, gathered in that hotel room, or that hotel ballroom or whatever it was, with this incredible press conference. What a moment in time! And these recordings recently surfaced. Someone apparently had purchased them on eBay, and lo and behold, they found gold.
Oh, did they ever? And we have, I have 3 more clips I'm going to play this week, and I'm sort of like spreading this out a little bit. So next week you'll probably hear more Empire Strikes Back press conference material, because there is, like you said, Jason, there's a lot of gold to be mined from these tapes. The first clip we're going to hear from is one of our favorites here, Rebel Force Radio, the great Billy D. Williams, Lando Calrissian. And he gets asked by the press corps about what it's like being the new kid on the block as far as joining up, hooking up, attaching his star to the Star Wars franchise.
I wanted to ask Billy what it felt like to be the new kid on the block. You were brand new. How did they accept you?
Everybody was quite helpful. It was a different experience for me. It was a different rhythm. But before I pass out of this life, I want to do everything I can do. I wanted to work with Kirshner. I wanted to work with George Lucas and company. I regard them as a new breed or a different breed, a breed that we haven't really experienced in a long time. I mean, these are truly filmmakers. So it was an opportunity for me, and quite a pleasurable opportunity.
All right. Mark Billy D as feeling pleasured for having worked with the likes of Irvin Kershner and George Lucas.
I just find it interesting to hear Billy D in 1980, as stiff as he is in that response. He's not the loose Billy D. Williams that we got to know via his various appearances at nerd conventions across the globe. You know, I mean, Billy really made his mark, and he sounds very reserved right there. Very, very serious, still in that serious actor mode.
Yeah.
So it's nice to note how he really started to loosen up publicly as he advanced over the years and grew to love Star Wars. I really think Billy D. Williams does love Star Wars to this day. I really do. And I think he appreciates everything it's done for him in his career. But back then, it's kind of a Billy D. Williams with an edge, you know, kind of a chip on his shoulder, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a different vibe. Very serious. The only thing that makes me think of sort of this free spirit Billy D. that we see in interviews these days is when he talks about how, you know, there's a lot of things he wants to do before he, you know, slips the surly bounds of Earth. You know, are you talking about before he moves on to the next realm? These are the things he wants to do. You know, Billy's always been a very spiritually minded guy. And, but beyond that, it's just about, you know, Kershner, professional, George Lucas, professional, all of that. And prior to Empire Strikes Back, I confess, I didn't think that Irvin Kershner was really a director of any great renown that people like a Billy D. Williams would say, boy, I've always wanted to work with Irvin Kershner. I get the George Lucas thing because of Star Wars and American Graffiti, but were actors just dying to work with Kersh?
Well, I'm not aware of him having that sort of reputation, but I am familiar with a story that Billy D. has told in the past about the first time he met Kershner and how the two of them connected over Zen Buddhism and things like that on a spiritual plane. He and Kersh seem to have this one-on-one connection. And that's what I think he's referencing when he talks about really wanting to work with Irvin Kershner, is the fact that he really connected with the guy on a personal level and on a spiritual level going into the project. And that really made Billy D. feel excited about working in Star Wars.
I see. Okay, so they had that commonality together. So, yeah. Okay.
And he saw Irvin Kershner and said, hello, what do we have here? And Kersh was like, I'm putting it in the script. Done. Forget about it. We got an email from CJ who said, I heard you talking about the Empire Strikes Back press conference. I'm the person who originally purchased it in November of 2011 for $20.
No way. See?
Yes.
This is why you listen to Rebel Force Radio, folks.
Well, I mean, the hardcore Star Wars fans have their ears to this show. And CJ instantly recognized the recordings we played last week. He says to me, I recently tracked down the person who I purchased it from and asked him about the source. In his own words, there was never any video. I bought on eBay a box of audio cassette tapes from a reporter who had worked at a newspaper's entertainment desk. There were all sorts of interviews with other stars, Anne Margaret, Jack Lemmon, etc. But Empire was the cream of the crop. In fact, the tapes were damaged, and I had to meticulously put them back together as I knew I was holding a piece of history in my hands. Wow. I do remember mine was on a 90-minute tape, and I'm certain it was number 2 of 2. The number 1 tape was not in the box I bought. That's all. So he bought him for $20, you know, and he knew right away he had a piece of history in his hands. And yeah, so that's the source, so the original source.
Thank you, CJ.
So CJ's he's clearing things up with us. And it was number 2 of 2. But I really believe that, there is a little bit of the press conference missing at the very beginning. You don't hear your typical intros and all of that stuff. But I think maybe we picked it up about midway toward the beginning, actually, of the part where there was a Q&A going on with the actors. Because Carrie shows up in the middle of the thing. She shows up. So
she was in the bathroom.
Well, she was somewhere, you know, doing Carrie Fisher stuff.
Yeah.
But so he bought them for $20. He bought it back in November 2011 for $20. Wow. And he's right. That is history, and the history is being appreciated, at least by us here at Rebel Force Radio. So thank you very much, CJ, for making it happen. Much appreciated. Much appreciated. So let's get back into some more of these clips. We got some good ones here. I think the next one is Dave Prowse. Yes, Dave Prowse. Dave Prowse, never one to hold back on a thought, opinion, or top secret info. And Dave was always notoriously loose-lipped with the press. Still can never really figure out why he was just so off-the-cuff honest with everyone about things that had to have been known as top secret. But we've heard stories about Dave Prowse leaking, the fact that Darth Vader will reveal himself as Luke Skywalker's father in Empire Strikes Back, like years before Empire Strikes Back hit the theaters.
Yeah.
And that always caused, I think, a lot of strain between him and Lucasfilm. And sadly, I mean, long past him being an actor and the films being in production, he crossed the line with Lucasfilm somewhere where they banned him from signing autographs at their conventions.
Yeah.
And I know the people who ran the autograph halls, they were saying, what? Dave Prowse is Darth Vader. He has a constant line. How can you take him away from us and from the fans that way? But Lucasfilm, after a while, they finally had enough. And this was while George was still part of the company. So, you know, sometimes you can burn a bridge for
went all the way to the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really call it what the thing that broke the camel's back was. But it was George still running the company at that time. And Dave Prowse did get blacklisted. And I think it's just a history of David Prowse being very loose-lipped. And in this particular press conference, he gets confronted by a journalist asking him to confirm some statements that he had made in the media, most specifically about seeing Vader unmasked in Empire Strikes Back. So it seems like Dave was leaking a lot of things, not just the lineage thing with "I am your father." He was spilling the beans about pretty much every scene he was in. It sounds like. So he gets asked, did he reveal Vader would be seen unmasked in Empire Strikes Back?
David, I think I read about a year ago or a year and a half, something like that. You made a comment. I'm paraphrasing it. This time we'll see Darth Vader's face. It will be covered with tubes and be ugly. I thought I read that at least.
No,
saw the back of your head, whatever that was.
No, I don't think anywhere have I ever said that we were going to see Darth Vader completely unmasked. I knew that they had a plan to show the back of his head,
But that was all. And as I said, the problem is nobody ever explains very much of what's going on the film to me.
Put on the outfit.
Which is probably the reason why, with my talking as I do, that's probably the reason why they don't tell me very much. But it's as I said, I knew, as I said, that the back of my head was going to be exposed. And I've heard in a sort of roundabout way that in the past that Darth Vader's fallen into a volcano and is terribly disfigured underneath the mask, which is the reason why he wears the mask. But that's as far as I know. If you want to know any more, you'll have to ask Gary.
Will we be seeing the real Darth Vader?
Well, in the earlier stories that in the first 3 episodes, basically, that is one of the key story elements, is the early development of the Ben Kenobi and Darth Vader characters and the fall of the Old Republic and the Jedi Knights, and that whole part of the story that Ben just explains to Luke in Star Wars.
The young lady here? Can I just say one thing there? Is I hope they hurry up and get to it before I get too old.
Well, Dave, yeah, it's some crazy foreshadowing there as he talks about, I'm always the last to know on these things. They don't always explain what's going on in these movies to me. And, perhaps that's because, I talk too much. Yeah, I think that's, like I say, that's some interesting foreshadowing for what would later follow him.
I think he was talking so much as a result of not getting information that he felt like he deserved. He really did take a lot of ownership of the role of Darth Vader and felt it was very important to him and his legacy. But I think the filmmakers looked at him more as like a stunt performer. Yeah. Not necessarily as someone who is, he did get some great billing in all of those films.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to diminish anything he brought to Darth Vader, because I don't want to see, we all talk about the guys they have playing Darth Vader nowadays, and we note the differences from times to times.
Mm-hmm.
So, It just, Dave did apply a little bit of self-importance to his position within the production, which I think he could never let go. And it was something that he was acting passively aggressive against throughout his entire Star Wars career.
Right.
He was the guy who was setting up tables at the hotel across the street from Star Wars Celebration 2. Because he felt like or Celebration 3, because he felt like he should have been in the Darth Vader armor in Revenge of the Sith. But they gave that to Hayden, because Hayden was the man of the moment.
That may have been, we were speculating earlier, Jim, what was the straw that broke the camel's back? It may have been connected to some of the words that he said during that time about...
Could be, yeah.
Yeah. Hayden and not being in the armor.
Yeah, so he would set up a table at the hotel across the street from Star Wars Celebration and sign autographs in that hotel lobby. And I think Lucasfilm had a problem with that. Because he wanted to be connected, Yeah,
of course he did. Of course he did. And we ran into him many times at unofficial conventions, and he never held back. That's for sure.
He never held back. You can find one of our favorite interviews with David Prowse on the RFR YouTube channel. Just look for Darth Vader Pulls No Punches. David Prowse interview. So we got one more for you. This is a meteor chunk, and we're going to wrap up everything with this clip. There's questions about Yoda. Yoda was the new emerging character in Empire Strikes Back. And this is a moment in time when Yoda was on the burst of blowing up big time and becoming a cultural phenomenon. And he was so fresh, I don't think that everyone who watched the movie really understood what his name actually was, as you'll hear in this question from a reporter asking about Yoda to Mark Hamill.
I have my notebook here with Yoda on the cover, and I wonder if Gary could tell us a little about Yoda
perhaps the most fascinating new character besides Billy Williams in this picture. Frank Oz works it, or does the voice, the whole thing. What is Yoda?
Well, first of all, his name is Yoda.
Oh, Yoda. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
First of all,
the character actually was created by many different people. It's definitely a collaborative character. The original sketches were done by Ralph McQuarrie, our conceptual artist, and Joe Johnston, one of our effects art directors. Ultimately, Stuart Freeborn, our English makeup and creature designer, did all of the clay sculpting, and the final character evolved out of that work and sculpting. A lot of people feel that Yoda looks very much like Stuart Freeborn, and in some ways he does. It's very similar. Frank Oz does do the voice, yes, and he also is the principal performer of Yoda. It's a little difficult to explain exactly because Yoda is very complicated to operate. It takes 3 or 4 people to operate him. Some of it is mechanical, some of it is electronic, some of it is hydraulic, and some of it is human. And he is shown in several different forms in the picture. The fact that it was an artificial character in the sense that it wasn't a real flesh and blood made it all the more difficult for it to come alive in the film. And if it did for you, some of the credit definitely goes to Stuart and to Frank and his assistants, but a lot of the credit goes to Mark, who had to act with him and make the character come alive by acting with him as a real person.
Could I just ask Mark how you did that? How do you act with this mechanical Yoda?
I was really afraid of that. On our first, Carrie and Harrison and Kirsch, it was before Billy got to England, all sat down and we read the script out loud, and Carrie and Harrison were trading ideas and saying, no, wait a minute, how about if I say this and you drop that? And I had the bulk of the script with this thing who never showed up to rehearsals.
He was there.
But you just have to jump in. It's like you don't test the water, just plow on through. And interestingly enough, I found that with all these off-camera manipulators hidden, whether they were, under the log in pits, and there were cables running out his back, right at the moment, not setting up or lighting or getting everything right, but right at the moment when we had to film it, it just was, it worked for me. And I think it's working for a lot of kids, because we saw it in London, and I was asked by 3 kids if Yoda was there to sign autographs.
Where's Yoda?
Talk about a long line. Yoda showing up at a con to sign autographs. Wow. It wrap around buildings. I do want to point out that that reporter that was pronounced, that's also how we heard earlier, Sofia Vergara also pronounced the name
Joda.
is Joda.
That's brilliant.
Joda. Yeah, I liked it going all the way back to these initial press conferences that Mark was getting the credit, and Gary Kurtz, I believe, was the one that was giving that tip of the hat to Mark. He's the guy that is really half of Yoda. Despite the genius of Frank Oz, it doesn't work if the person playing opposite doesn't believe in it and doesn't sell it. And Mark sold it. And it also interesting to hear Mark talk about at the table read that, here's Harrison and Carrie kind of working out their bits together, and he doesn't have anybody to work with. And also keep in mind too, that this was probably tough for Mark because, coming off the success of the first film, they were this trio and they would go and they would do publicity together. And Mark is probably feeling like his character is getting sidelined a little bit while Carrie and Harrison and Anthony, and then they got this new, guy, Billy D. Williams. They're all having this big adventure, and Mark is stuck on this planet with a puppet, a Muppet. So I'm just guessing that I'm just thinking if I was Mark Hamill at that time, not knowing the legacy, obviously, that Yoda and that movie would create. Be like, wait a minute, man, I'm stuck in this swamp while they're having this big adventure together.
Yeah, I think that did run across Mark Hamill's mind a few times. Here I am sitting here with the Muppet. But it is Mark's performance that fully sells Yoda.
Yeah.
I mean, just fully sells it because he's the only guy there interacting with the puppet. But it's really a tour de force as far as great acting Star Wars moments that I think often get overlooked. Because Mark is performing for two characters in essence. He has to sell his performance, but he also has to be extremely buying into the Yoda thing. So we buy in.
He's got to believe
comes
it.
across. He believes it, and it does come across.
It sure does. Wow, that's great. Are there any more that we can look forward to of this for this press conference?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
yeah. I have even gotten into the individual interviews that happened.
Oh my gosh, this is great. This is we've got more to look forward to as we wow. From SNL to the original press run to The Empire Strikes Back. You know, I know what people think. They go, wait, you listen to a weekly Star Wars podcast? What do they talk about every week? My gosh, I tell you what we talk about. We've got almost 50 years of history to talk about. From incredible pop culture crossovers on SNL to these vintage interviews. And you got to go check out that Dave Prowse interview. You won't believe it. You just got to listen to it. Dave Prowse pulls no punches.
He pulls no punches. No, sir. No, sir. I just want to say, though, I mean, it will always be a thrill for me to realize that memory of us sitting there talking to Dave Prowse, Darth Vader. Yeah. It was never lost on to me that this guy is one of my all-time heroes. Despite being the most vicious villain of the Star Wars saga, it was an honor to talk to him.
It sure was. I remember having a moment as we were sitting there talking to him, probably the first time that I sat there at the same table and thinking, oh my gosh, you're the guy.
Yeah.
You're the guy.
Yeah, when it comes to those original trilogy, guys,
yeah,
it's still there. It definitely is not lost on us when it's happening.
It's so special, and we take you there. And Dave Prowse sadly has left us, but we have these memories, and we have these episodes of Rebel Force Radio in these moments. So check it out. If you need more Rebel Force Radio and the weekly podcast and the YouTube channel doesn't do it for you, it's not enough. Go over to Rebel Force Radio on Patreon, patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. You get the weekly full show video. And I got to tell you, for a show like this week where we're looking at those classic SNL sketches and other video highlights, the video is really, really a great way to experience RFR. So that might be an option for you if you can get in at the all access tier. But exclusive podcasts that you can't find anywhere else, that's at the entry level. You get in the door and you're listening to exclusive podcasts like the Q&A and the Babu Freaks and the RPG, all of that. And as Max said earlier, the greatest community, we believe, the greatest community of Star Wars fans found anywhere. As I mentioned before, watch us on YouTube, youtube.com/Rebel Force Radio. Follow us on all of our socials, Facebook, X, Instagram, and more. I can't remember the new ones. And the website for everything and all things Rebel Force Radio, rebelforceradio.com. Best way to help us out here on the channel is to do what you're doing right now. Keep listening and recommend Rebel Force Radio to your friends, the Star Wars fans in your life. that have never listened to RFR, please let them know about us. And we appreciate that very much. Also, if your podcatcher of choice allows you to do so, we love to have you write a review. Reviews do really do a lot for us. We love to have them. We love to read them. Just one simple rule, please.
Make them good.
And that's it. We'll see you next week here for more Rebel Force Radio and/or Season 2 just around the corner. It's going to warm things up, I hope. It's coming out in April. For those of us in the Midwest, it has been frigid. Getting that Chicago weather here.
Oh, please.
The negative temps.
Think of how good the spring and summer is going to feel when it arrives.
It's going to be great.
There you go.
It's going to be great. All right, we'll see you next week. Love you all so much for Rebel Force Radio. I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.
This is the way.